Most Pokemon have many different names around the world, depending on which language you're playing the game in. So good morning, fellas, I'm Matt, and today Elias and I are going to take a look at where a bunch of these names come from. Alright, let's get started.
What's up, I'm Elias, and Kecleon's English and Japanese names probably have the same origin. They most likely come from the English word chameleon, as well as this Japanese word that means to hide. It's also called Kecleon throughout Europe, and its names in other languages have similar inspirations. In Mandarin, it's called Bianyanlong, which is derived from the words for chameleon and hidden. The character meaning hidden is Yin, which is quite fittingly hidden in the middle of its name.
When I was telling Elias about this video, I told him, hey, you're gonna have to say some Mandarin words, and he was like, I quit. Get ready to learn Chinese, buddy. I have not.
Wow.
Kecleon has had two different names in Korean. Its original name comes from this word that means to want to hide, but this name was retired before Kecleon even debuted in the video games. It appeared several times in the Johto arc of the anime, but it got a new Korean name, the Hoenn arc. This name is likely some combination of the English words color, chameleon, and monster. It wasn't used in the video games until Gen 4 though, because the Gen 3 games never came out in South Korea.
Well, it's a good thing I didn't quit though.
Did you expect me to learn Chinese in a week?
I expected you to be able to read over 6,000 characters fluently by now.
Aw, man.
Unown's name isn't terribly complex in most languages. It's just the word unknown in both English and Japanese, although its English name had a few letters removed. The Spanish and Italian versions of the game borrowed the English name as usual, and the Korean version borrowed the Japanese one. Its Chinese name is Weizhi Tuteng. I don't know how to say these words. Its Chinese name is Weizhi Tuteng, which means unknown totem.
I've got to pronounce French in this next paragraph. I do not guarantee that I'm going to say this properly. Its French name is also just a word that exists in the language, but it's a specific kind of slang word that I find really interesting. Unknown in French is zarbi. Apologies to our French viewers, which is an example of Verlan. That's a type of slang where you take an existing word and flip the sounds around. In the case of a two-syllable word, it can become Verlan by reversing the order of the syllables. So Unknown's French name is slang for bizarre, which is a word we also have in English. That's not the only example of Verlan in the Pokemon world either. Kinda. In a previous name origin video, we talked about Rabsca, and how its English name is derived from scarab with the syllables reversed. In the same vein, its French name is a Verlanized version of their word for scarab. Its pre-evolution Rellor's name is... You know what? That's enough of me trying to pronounce French for one day. Rellor's name is on your screen now, and it's a Verlanized version of this word. It roughly means roll, but more specifically, it means something along the lines of somersault or tumble.
As far as we can tell though, Rellor and Rabsca's names aren't widely used Verlan words. It seems like the localizers took the concepts of Verlan and applied them to other words. Any word could theoretically be Verlanized, but rarer words usually don't get that kind of treatment. Scarab beetles and somersaults don't come up that often in everyday conversations. Citation needed. So there's not much of a need to have a slang word for them. I happen to have a conversation with my friend about scarab beetles and somersaults every single day, and we send each other videos of scarab beetles doing somersaults.
Sounds like you have a very strange relationship with this mystery person.
That mystery person's name is Matt.
Hey, don't expose our messenger DMs. Verlan is mostly used to talk about much more common topics, like music, your classes, or your parents. You might also use Verlan when you're talking about something that's weird, crazy, or stupid. Rellor's English name came about in a similar manner as well. It's derived from the word roller, but instead of reversing the syllables, it's just spelled backwards.
Alright, let's take a look at Xatu next. If you made an alphabetical list of Gen 1 Pokemon in English, you'd find that there's at least one that starts with every letter of the alphabet, with 4 exceptions. There is no Pokemon that started with Q, U, X, or Y, which Nintendo and the Pokemon Company wanted to fix in Gen 2, mostly for merchandising purposes.
Back when Gen 2 was being localized, Jeff Callis was working for Nintendo. He came up with English names for several Johto Pokemon, including Wobbuffet and Girafarig. He also suggested the name Xatu, because he knew Nintendo wanted to complete the alphabet. Its name is derived from the Haida Native American word hat, which is the type of memorial totem pole. So we took its pre-evolution Natu's name and swapped the N out for an X.
Xatu brings us to another point worth discussing. Most of the time, the way you pronounce a Pokemon's name will follow logically from its origin. Rhyperior's name probably comes from rhinoceros and superior, and it's pronounced exactly how you'd expect with that info in mind. This Pokemon's name is Crocodile rather than Crocodile, which also lines up with its most likely origin, but there are plenty of exceptions to that quote-unquote rule.
We made a short about Xatu's name origin a little while ago, and we got some comments saying something along the lines of, does that mean we should call it Hatu instead of Xatu? There's no need to do that, because Pokemon's pronunciations aren't always the same as the words they're derived from.
Usually when a word starts with X in English, it'll make a Z sound. That applies to words like xylophone, Unown, and hander.
Extremely loud, incorrect buzzer.
That applies to words like xylophone, xenon, and xander. So even though Xatu's name comes from a word that starts with ha, it's officially pronounced with a z sound instead. That makes its name more intuitive for English speakers, especially since ha doesn't exist at all in most dialects.
There are many other examples of that sort of thing as well. This Pokemon is officially pronounced Blastoise, and most fans agree on that, even if they call this animal a tortoise instead of a tortoise. In the same vein, Charizard doesn't rhyme with lizard. The ending of Aggron's name probably comes from iron, but we don't call it Aggern. So Xatu's name origin doesn't necessarily mean it should be pronounced a certain way.
Pokemon's names are ultimately made-up words, which gives Nintendo and Game Freak more freedom when it comes to pronunciations. That's especially the case in English, where pronunciation and spelling are infamously inconsistent to begin with. Do, cough, tough, through, and bow don't rhyme with each other, so screw it, anything goes. On another note, Callus also helped Nintendo fill in another gap in the alphabet. He came up with the name Quilava as well, which comes from, you know what, I don't need to explain this one. Next, when did Quillfish get introduced?
Quillfish came about at the same time. I think Quilava's name came first, though.
Yeah, and you ever think of,
Quagsire's the other one. Well, that Xatu bit was long-winded, so let's do a few quick ones next. Rotom's name is the English word motor backwards, and it's very similar cross-linguistically, with one exception. We'll come back to you later. Rotom's name works perfectly well in Spanish, Italian, German, Hindi, Russian, and Thai, but it had to be modified slightly in other languages.
Japanese syllables typically can't end with a mus sound, so Rotom's Japanese name has an extra vowel at the end. Then its Chinese and Korean names are transcriptions of the Japanese one. The only language where Rotom's name is completely different is French, where it's a combination of the words for motor and plasma.
MEPlaysGames lore, I am currently at Elias's house and Spacer is rubbing up against all my stuff.
Good.
Roserade's name is probably a combination of Rose and Masquerade. It has the same name in nearly every language, but it also had to be slightly modified for a few of them. Once again, a vowel was added to his Japanese name, and that carried over into Chinese as well. But there is one language where Roserade's name is completely different. Sort of.
For many years, Pokemon didn't have Hindi names. From 2003 to 2023, the Hindi version of the Pokemon anime used transcriptions of their English names instead. But when the Hindi version of Pokemon Go was released, it came with brand new localized names. These names were used in several spin-off games, as well as the Hindi dub of Pokemon Horizons. Roserade's new name comes from the Hindi word for rose, as well as the English word mask. In September of 2025 though, Pokemon Go and the anime dropped the localized names and brought the English ones back.
On another note, Spacer has entirely fallen asleep on my jacket, so I guess I'm not going nowhere for a while.
That's okay, cats are pretty good at waking up.
Squirtle's English name is quite simple. It's just a combination of the words squirt and turtle. But this little guy's names around the world have quite a lot going on. Its Japanese name is Zenigame, which is also the name of an immature pond turtle. The first half of its name is derived from an old word for money, because its shell kind of looks like a bunch of coins. Squirtle's shell has similar patterns, so it was named after this real-life turtle in Japanese.
When the first generation of Pokemon was localized, the original plan was to use the Pokemon's Japanese names in French, Spanish, Italian, and German. Julian Bartikoff was the game's French localizer, and he pushed back against said plan. Some Pokemon's Japanese names would sound somewhat inappropriate in French, and Bartikoff wanted to avoid that in a family-friendly game. The second half of Squirtle's Japanese name sounds like this French word, which means something along the lines of junkie or stoner, and we're demonetized. Isn't there a Pokemon with a slur in it somewhere, like...
Cophagrigus?
Yeah.
Gabite actually had a very similar problem. B-I-T-E, that just means bite in English, but in French, it's slang for penis.
That's kind of funny.
Bartikoff convinced Nintendo to let him create brand new French names, and this is what he came up with for Squirtle. The second half of its name literally means flea, but it's also a term of endearment in French, kind of like sweetie or honey in English. The first half comes from this word that means shell. Thanks to Bartikoff's efforts, Pokemon are given localized French names to this day. They also get unique names in German, and the Spanish and Italian versions reuse the English names instead, with very limited exceptions.
Ekans' English name is obviously snake spelled backwards. What? And variations of that name are also used in Hebrew, Hindi, Lithuanian, and Russian. Ekans' Japanese name is a lesson in how Pokemon's names are romanized, as well as how writing systems that aren't alphabets can work.
If you look up Ekans' Japanese name, you might see it romanized as Arbo, but that doesn't entirely reflect how it's pronounced. This consonant cluster in the middle isn't allowed in Japanese. Oh, Spacer's awake, hello.
You scared
Traditionally, Ekans' name would be romanized as Abo instead, without the R in the middle. Sorry, what'd you say?
You scared him.
Oh man. But Game Freak uses a different Romaji system internally, for the purposes of trademark and merchandise.
Under Game Freak's system, a long A sound is usually spelled AR instead, which we can also see in Charizard, Beedrill, and Zoroark's names. But if we set that aside and we spell Ekans' Japanese name with the standard Hepburn Romaji system instead, its origin becomes a little bit clearer. The name Abo is Boa spelled backwards.
That brings us to a key difference between English and Japanese writing. If you were to spell the word boa backwards in English, you would get AOB, which I will not be trying to pronounce as a word.
Ayob.
Yeah, what he said. In an alphabet, each letter corresponds to a sound, with some room for irregularities. Okay, a lot of room for irregularities. And there are letters for both consonants and vowels, but the Japanese language doesn't use an alphabet. Pokemon's Japanese names are written in katakana, which is one of the language's 3 writing systems. Katakana is a syllabary, which means most characters represent entire syllables, rather than individual sounds.
That means when you spell boa backwards in Japanese, you're reversing the order of the syllables, not the letters. So that's how you get abo instead of that. Ekans' Japanese name has an extra character in the middle, but it doesn't actually make a sound on its own. It just turns short vowels into long vowels in katakana. Aside from that, Japanese also uses hiragana, which is a syllabary as well. The third writing system is kanji, which consists of characters that are borrowed from Chinese.
Unlike hiragana and katakana though, kanji is a different kind of writing system called logography. That means each character represents an entire word or morpheme. Generally speaking, characters in a syllabary don't convey meaning on their own, but characters in a logography do. If you play Pokemon in Japanese, or read any text in Japanese for that matter, you'll find all 3 systems used in tandem with each other. Ekans is also called abo in French, Korean, and Thai. Its Mandarin name is... help me out here, Elias.
Abusha.
Thanks, man. That's a combination of its Japanese name and the Chinese word for snake. Hi, I'm Matt, and I'm very much not Chinese, so I'm not gonna sit here and butcher the language.
I'm actually like so much better at Chinese than you are, it's not even funny.
Wow, it's almost like you grew up speaking Chinese at home and I did not.
This is our 3rd video about name origins, because it's a topic that we like to revisit every now and then. As always though, you should take this video and any other content like it with a grain of salt. A select few origins have been confirmed by Game Freak or Nintendo, but most of them haven't. Aside from a few exceptions, everything in this video is an educated guess, which means we're lying out of our ass.
Extremely loud, incorrect buzzer.
We'll be revisiting this topic again in the future, so stay tuned. I'm trying to think of X's and Y's. There's Evital, Xerneas.
Y is Yanma, U is Umbreon.
Oh, Umbreon, of course. Japanese syllables typically can't end with an...
With a muh sound.
With a muh sound, dude. Yeah, this like doesn't work at all.
Is this just gibberish?
It's not gibberish, it's just like... I don't know, bro, like, were you born in the 1200s? Tomato, potato, tomato, potato, bro. It's all the same.
Okay, but who says potato?
The potato man does.
Are you just making up a superhero right now? Is that what's happening?
Yeah, man, the potato man. He saved Ireland.
They say potato in Ireland, don't they?
I don't know what they say in Ireland, dude. Video over, go home. The job is done. We can go home now, or whatever Nikola Jokic said when he won the championship.